As part of your business, you have emergency planning in place. You have a plan if a fire breaks out and you need to exit the building quickly, or if a flood happens, you have protocols in place for securing equipment and isolating electricity. Sadly, you might even have a plan in place for a terrorist incident or a street shooting. You know that you would need to evacuate customers and visitors in a safe and timely manner. Now consider this. How far have you factored in a disabled customer or visitor into that planning? This does not necessarily have to be a complicated situation unless you are 20 floors up, and then of course you're going to have to rely on the training of the fire service. But in general day-to-day practice, if you're needing to get to a disabled person out of your place of business in an emergency situation, your protocols might need to have a little more detail than you had previously considered. It all comes down to effective communication and orderly implementation of a coherent plan. But how do you structure that plan? The majority of severely disabled people with very serious communication difficulties would tend to have a carer or a companion when they are out and about, and in the situation you will of course work with them to ensure the disabled person's safety. It gets a little more complicated when a disabled person is unaccompanied. Sometimes if a person is able-bodied but has another kind of disability, deafness for example, that person can leave the building at the same speed as anyone else, but that person might not even be aware of the hazard and the chaos that it is causing, particularly if they have their back to the situation. So they need to be communicated with effectively, not easy to do when hell is breaking out around you. It's no good shouting at a deaf person from the corner of your cafe that the espresso machine has sprung a leak all over the toaster, and for heaven's sake don't touch anything electrical, and I think we all need to get out. Equally, if a blind person is in your spa reception area and the waxing machine upstairs is starting to smoke alarmingly, then just popping your head through the door yelling fire and legging it is not an acceptable plan. So think in advance. Identify the people in your business who would be best able to cope if the worst should happen, because when we say consider the inevitable, we don't mean that it is inevitable that the worst will happen. We're saying that if the worst should happen and there is no training or plan in place, then it is inevitable that people will panic and a disabled person will probably be left behind. So think in advance. Plan in advance. Train your staff in emergency protocols, factoring in extra considerations for disabled people, because if the worst should happen, then there is a clear plan for everyone to follow, and there is no panicking and no confusion, which makes it safer for everyone.